Hello, fourth grade readers and writers. Welcome back to ELA School, Away from School. And I'm your virtual teacher, Mrs. Ewing. All right, let's get started. So we were introduced to our new text yesterday, and today we're going to dive in with a close reading activity. And we're really going to work around finding the meaning of unknown words and phrases and how they help support the main idea of the whole text. So let's start by looking at our guiding questions. This is daily lesson 16, and we're on week 4. All right, first guiding question says, what can we learn from the process of ratifying the 19th Amendment? How can stories inspire us to take action to contribute to a better world? And how and why can we encourage and support others to contribute to a better world? All right, so let's get our materials together, or I like to call them, there are tools that we're going to use today. So we need our text. It's titled The Many Black Women Who Helped to Build the Civil Rights Movement. We're going to need our lesson 16, our lesson 16 note catcher. All of those materials you can find in your ELA packet, and you're going to need a sharpened pencil. So go ahead and pause the video now as you collect your materials or your tools you're going to need for today. All right, now that we have our tools, let's get to work. So our learning target for today says, I can determine the meaning of general and domain-specific words and phrases as they pertain to the article, the many Black women who helped to build the Civil Rights Movement. All right, so before we begin, we're going to read a section of our text. So with a family member, a caregiver, or a friend, reread the section with the subheading, even in the background, women made history, from the text, the many Black women who helped to build the Civil Rights Movement. So let me help you out with where it is. That subheading, even in the background, women made history, is actually at the bottom of the first page. So just the subheadings at the bottom of the first page, and the actual section starts at the top of the second page. So that might be a little confusing. So just know the subheading is at the bottom of that first page, but the section actually starts at the top of the second page. Sorry, I'm looking at it over here. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4 paragraphs in that section. So go ahead with your family member, your caregiver, or your friend, reread that section of text that we're going to look closer at today. All right, pause this video. Go ahead and start reading. All right, great. Now that we've read that text, let's do some thinking. I want you to think about these questions. Before, though, we think about those questions, I do have a reminder for you. Because our learning target today is working around the meaning of general and academic word and phrases in a text, there are some clues that we can use, or close reading strategies that we can use to help us find the meaning of words or even phrases we don't know. So the first one is using context. So reading the sentence around that word or phrase and thinking about, okay, what is this about? And how can that give me clues to what that word or that phrase actually means? The next 2 strategies are ones that are great for words you're not sure about. You can look at the affix, which is either at the beginning or the end of the word, and it helps to modify the meaning of the word. So for example, the same example we used last week, but disapprove, dis means not. So that'll help you know that that word must mean like not approve or not agree, right? Or you can look at the root of the word. So in the word disapprove, the root word is approve. And remember, the root word is that word that can stand on its own, that has a meaning all of its own, right? You can also use a dictionary to help you. Now, I'm really going to encourage you to work on those first 3 strategies first before going to that dictionary, because finding the meaning of unknown words and phrases is a skill, and like any other skill, the more we practice, the better we get at it, right? Now, sometimes it is necessary to use that dictionary, so if you need be, go into that dictionary. It's one more place to help you. All right, so now after that reminder, let's think about these questions. I want you to think about, what is this section mainly about? How does this section support the main idea of the whole text? And what does this phrase, put their mark on history, mean? And you can find that phrase, put their mark on history, in that first paragraph of that section. All right, pause this video and go ahead and think about those 3 questions. All right, good. We've done some reading. Now we've done some thinking. Let's do some talking. All right, so with a family member, a caregiver, or friend, I want you to talk about the following questions. The first question says, what does the phrase, put their mark on history, mean? Pause this video and talk about this now. All right, good. Now that you've talked about what this phrase means, I want you to discuss what clues can you find in the text that help you understand the meaning of this phrase. All right, pause this video and talk about this now. All right, good. Before we move on, I want us to stop and I want to bring up this word mark. It says, put your mark on history. I want you to think about, what does mark mean in this phrase? All right, go ahead and pause this video and talk about, how is mark used in this phrase? And maybe what's another word you could use for mark? All right, stop this video and talk about it now. All right, good. In your discussions, you probably went back in that text and you thought about what is happening or what is the text saying around that phrase. So let's do a little discussing about it now. In that first paragraph, it says, Barbara Reynolds is a journalist and a minister. There were hundreds of unnamed women who participated in the movement, she said. It was not just a few leaders, such as Martin Luther King, who put their mark on history. It was these women, Reynolds said. All right, so I know that Martin Luther King made a huge impact in the civil rights movement. Because of his actions, his words, things he did, it changed history. So I'm thinking then, put their mark on history must mean something about making an impact on history. Do you guys see how I thought about that? I thought about what's happening in that section and then thought about what could that phrase mean, right? So it could even say it was not just a few leaders such as Martin Luther King who made an impact on history. See how I did that, right? That would make sense too. So put a mark on history must mean something about making a difference that lives on in history. So if I think about another word for that word, mark on history, it must mean, you know, you can mark on a chalkboard, you can make marks on a piece of paper, right? And once you make a mark, then now you can see it, right? So put their mark on history must mean to make an impact, to do something that stays and matters. Okay, good. So now that we've had this discussion, I want us to talk about this final question. What is another way to say the phrase, put their mark on history? How else could you say that? All right, so really I'm asking you to give me the meaning of that phrase in your own word. Like, what phrase could you say that also means put their mark on history? Pause this video, talk about it now. All right, good. So we've read, we've thought about what we read, we've talked about what we read, so now we're ready to write about it. All right, what we're going to do is on that lesson 16 note catcher, we're going to record the meaning of the phrase, put their mark on history. And then we're going to record how that phrase supports the main idea of the text. All right, so let's look at this note catcher. On that first row of the note catcher, it says, what is the meaning of the phrase, put their mark on history? So we've already discussed this, so go ahead and capture what you said the meaning of that phrase was. In the second row, you're going to put those context clues we talked about that helped you find the meaning of that phrase. In the third row, you're going to get a chance to put a synonym for the word mark. Just a reminder, a synonym is a word that means the same. So put a word in there that means the same as mark. And then in the last one, the last row, it says, how does this phrase support the main idea of the text? Now remember in that learning target, it said we're going to think about words and phrases as they pertain to this article. So as they pertain to, that is the connection there. So I really want you to think about, how does this phrase connect back to that main idea of this whole text. If you need a reminder of the main idea of the whole text, you can go back to yesterday's note catcher and kind of review that. All right, so go ahead and pause this video now and dive into that writing activity. All right, great. Hopefully, I want us to think about that last piece of that writing activity where you're thinking about how does this phrase support the main idea of the text? Well, yesterday we talked about how the main idea was really around these Black women who made a huge impact in the civil rights movement, even though they weren't recognized as men, right? Or as well as men were. So if we think about this phrase and it talks about put their mark on history, that connects back to not only were the men making their mark on history in the civil rights movement, but the women made just as much a mark on history. All right. Whew, good work today, guys. All right, you're going to now share your writing with someone. Tell them why you chose to write what you did. Then after you complete your assignment, remember to read a book with a family member, a caregiver, or a friend for at least 20 minutes. After you do this, we're going to practice that fluency. So use a timer. It could be a cell phone timer, kitchen timer. Have someone count to 60. Read the passage for 1 minute. Count the words you read correctly. Write that, or count the words you read. Write that number on the top of the text. And remember, each day, as we read this article, we get better and better, more fluent. We should see that number go up. All right. It was so great to spend this time with you today, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.